The ex-Formula One driver Mick Schumacher will get to test an IndyCar for the first time later on this month. Schumacher will drive for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course on Monday, October 13th. The 26-year-old German driver and son of F1 legend Michael Schumacher most recently served as the reserve driver for Mercedes, which ended last year, with hopes of eventually returning to the F1 grid after previously driving for Haas for F1 in 2021 and 2022. Next year will be 4 seasons since he raced in F1, as opportunities to get back into the pinnacle motorsport appear to be decreasing. However, the opportunity to experience the IndyCar world for the first time will give Schumacher something else to consider for his racing future. Now, according to Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, there aren't any commitments beyond this test, but if successful, both sides are hoping it could lead to more opportunities in 2026. Schumacher said that he's looking forward to his first IndyCar test, and he's curious to understand the special features and characteristics of the IndyCar, such as it being tough to drive from a physical standpoint. Now, despite racing in the FIA World Endurance Championships hypercar class with Alpine, Schumacher also acknowledged that his passion for single-seaters racing still runs deep. Now, we'll see if this will eventually lead to a full-time IndyCar seat for the 2020 Formula 2 champion, as Devlin DeFrancesco's seat is rumoured to be up in the air. The photo taken by Titus Slaughter from Penske Entertainment. Kobe, starting with you on this one, does this signal that Mick Schumacher is finally turning the page on his Formula One career after struggling to get that second chance?
Yeah, Josh. I think that this is probably, the end of the road in regards to F1 for Mick Schumacher, and I give Mick credit, for trying to get back in, get a second chance, prove that whatever happened during his first stint in F1 with Haas, was just a product of being in a bad situation. I remember at the time the Haas F1 car was not good at all, and also when you have two inexperienced drivers like him and Mazepin at the time in the car, that's not going to be a recipe for success, which is exactly why, you see the Cadillac F1 team bring in two experienced drivers. So Haas made a mistake back then bringing in two rookies when you needed a veteran and a rookie to try to get that program heading in the right direction. But yeah, it was real exciting to see Mick Schumacher is going to be with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing on the IMS road course. And if you've been watching the IndyCar series at the IMS road course in the last few years or so, that's the one track on the schedule RLL have figured out better than any other track on the IndyCar schedule. So he should have a good setup there, to get things started and really see what he can do at that track. And if he likes it, maybe he'll be a full-time IndyCar driver next year. I know we'll talk about more about him potentially joining IndyCar in 2026 in our next question coming up. But I think that this is a great opportunity for Mick. And as you mentioned, Josh, he says that he's real excited about single-seater racing. And I was reading an article on motorsport.com, and he kept talking about that burning passion to be in single-seaters. And yes, he's grateful for the opportunity to race something right now in the World Endurance Championship in hypercar, but he wants to continue racing in single-seaters, whether that's Formula One or another type of single-seater style of racing. And it seems like IndyCar might be his best chance to continue doing that, because in sports car racing, you can always come back and do that later on in your career. And I think Mick is still young enough where he can still have a great career in single-seaters outside of Formula One. And I think IndyCar would be a great spot for him if he decides to do that. Looking forward to seeing what happens at his test session.
Yeah, 4 years. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Evening, everybody. I mean, a great weekend Alpine had. We'll touch on that when we get to the EPI update in a little while. It wasn't Mick's car that did such a good job with Alpine at the weekend, but he's been doing okay, but just about okay in that WECC. And it looks like he's always wanted to try and get back in. Of course, he was on the outside looking in at Mercedes for those couple of years prior to him and Haas parting ways. And now I guess the only sort of logical step, unless he wants to go and spend his while away his days being paid quite well in Japan in Super Formula, was to go and do IndyCar, which it looks like that's perhaps plan A now for Mick and his team. And it's good to see him getting a run at the Indy road course, as you say, Kobe. Yeah, RLL, that's their track, isn't it, really? They haven't quite had the ultimate result there with Graham Rahal over the last few years, but he's been mighty, mighty close. So if there was going to be any way where you'd want to go with a team that knew what they were doing, it would be IMS with RLL. And well done to Mick. Congratulations on getting a test, and let's hope it comes to something.
We'd hope so too. Joe says the green intro scared me. I left the window open at work in the background, and the race car sound scared me. I found that, ladies and gentlemen, getting scared by the own intro. I'd tell you what, that's happened to me before. I haven't been paying attention, and JT, who's our producer and commentator over at J Motorsports, has clicked the intro button, and it goes wow in your ears, and you go, whoa, it takes you out for a second. And I must admit, every time Kobe hits that button, and I'm not prepared, it makes me jump as well. But following, it's a good alert actually as well, so it makes you know when we're live. It would be cool to see Mick Schumacher in IndyCar having his entry six. Yeah, we're live, right? Oh, we've got to be professional now. Usually I'm just sat here eating biscuits just before we go on air. But following up on that, how big would it be for IndyCar to have the Schumacher name on the grid next year? Because we saw even in Formula One, it rattled a few feathers around and got a few sponsors in for Haas. But for IndyCar, it's quite a big one because they, of course, remember the Schumacher name dominating at IMS.
Well, indeed so. I mean, it's a big name. It's a big, perhaps another big IndyCar coup. And they're always, hopeful to getting people across. Of course, there was a big story around Romain Grosjean going in there after the fact that he'd come back from his dramatic accident, more on Roman later in the show. And that was a cool story for certainly the first sort of season and a half before his kind of performance fell off a little bit. But Mick's still young enough to go over there and do a job. The problem, I think, if he gets the ride, then great, and he'll be good for RLL. They need a bit of an injection down there of something different. But what we've seen from him in all the categories he's been in, F3, F2, and in Formula One, takes some time to warm up to things, especially in F2. He did, and now he'll have to warm up to everything: new car, new track, new team, new setup, new race weekend formats, all of those kind of things. Ovals, of course. I think it will take, if he gets the ride and he gets in there, it will take him a long time. Well, not a long time, but it will take him most of, if not all of, the first season to get himself up to the speed of his teammates. But then again, you could say Graham Rahal hasn't really shown so much speed over the last couple of years. And if this comes off, then he'll probably show more speed than Devlin did in that car. So yes, as a headline grabber, it's another good thing for IndyCar. There's been plenty of IndyCar headlines over the last couple of years. A lot of them haven't come off, but this might be the next thing that gets the IndyCar tongues wagging, and it'd be just great to see Mick back in something competitive.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. It would be great to see Mick back in something competitive, and for him to be in IndyCar, to have the Schumacher name on the grid for next year's Indianapolis 500, that would be a massive headline for motorsports and the NTT IndyCar series. And you brought up a good point about Mick's career, Matt. Whenever I've looked at his stats and all of that, it's kind of odd how Mick, it takes him a while to figure things out. I remember first year in F3, he was average, and then boom, second year, he's on top of the world. First year in F2, average, and then second year, 2020, he's the Formula 2 champion, and another driver who was a standout in Formula 2 coming to IndyCar. We've heard that quite a few times before. You had Kristen Lundgaard, Marcus Armstrong, Callum Ilott, and those are some of the drivers who have come over from Formula 2 in the last few years and had success in that series and have done a solid job adapting to IndyCar style racing. So I guess if those guys, have done a great job coming from the F2 world, maybe Mick will as well, considering the success he had in his championship winning season in 2020. And you mentioned it, Matt, there's going to be a lot for him to learn, especially the oval racing, which is completely foreign to him right now. And if he does come full time, we'll see how that goes along. Some drivers take to it like a duck takes to water, and others have an extremely difficult time to figure out the ovals. And we already know everything his father Michael Schumacher accomplished during his historic Formula One career. It would be great to see a Schumacher come over to the IndyCar series and make a name for himself over here stateside.